Hey, everybody out there in whatever land. My intro is terrible, so forgive me on that. But I have the legendary Chris Lee here. I'm going to give you a quick bio before he gives his full introduction. Chris Lee has touched on every creative aspect in the game, to be honest. He's a designer. I'm talking graphic design, motion design. He does clothing, apparel, shoes, all that. He does filmmaking from movies, actual film to music videos. He done all that. On top of that, he does animation. He did a commercial with like it was a robot and it was Doritos. It was crazy. So he's touched on every aspect. He's what I call like the 360 creative of the new creative, like to touch on every aspect of creativity. I'm pretty sure he does a lot of things I don't even know about, but that's the best judge I can give him. So Chris Lee, ladies and gentlemen.
Was good.
It was good. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate this opportunity. It's really cool.
But yeah,
But yeah,
I
I
just
just love
being a creative.
being a creative,
And I've been doing it
for way too long. And I actually used to
think like
think, like, because the thing is, like, there's a lot of people that got in my head
telling
telling me that you can't be a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
And it kind of put me down at some points. I was like, oh, really? Yeah, because they were telling me you can't be a master. You got to stick to one thing, focus on it. But then I started to realize, like,
the
the new trend in the future is creatives actually, I feel like, have to kind of try to get all the fields because they all intersect and connect to each other, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah. Now I'm embracing it. Like when people ask me what I do, I'm like, I really don't know, man. I just make art.
I mean,
That's it. Yeah.
it's a weird place to be in right now because I know one field kind of merges to another, right? And so one thing helps you out. So if you're doing graphic design, it helps you out do motion design. So if you're doing that, then I mean, I feel like the two fields kind of blend to each other and kind of help each other. It's one and another, right? And then if you're doing motion and if you're implementing 3D, then it gives you the ability to do, some VFX, right? So you can kind of bleed on that. And if you're doing all this and you understand cameras and lighting, then you can put into the practical and do some lighting and do some cinematography. And if you're doing that and you understand storytelling, then I feel like they kind of bleed each other. And if you have the ability to master them, I feel like it's not necessarily you're losing something. I think you're gaining something because you can mix a lot of different feeds and a lot of different aspects. You can actually take a texture that you made for graphics and put it into your 3D. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's why, like, I feel like nowadays,
if you
if you dive into every aspect of art, filmmaking, and all that, then you can take all those techniques, then try to master one portion of
right,
it, right?
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So I mean, it's definitely it's definitely like the best of both worlds when you're doing stuff like that. It's best of both worlds. So let's I'm gonna address a small audio issue here. Somebody says they're hearing you double, so I'm gonna double check that
Oh,
and
That's
just
good.
that's good. Twice.
yeah. Sometimes you need to hear them twice so it can be cemented.
Yep.
So let me see what's going on. Let me check with my person's double checking the audio here.
That's kind of cool.
That's kind of cool that I can read the chat here too.
Yeah,
That's really
I
sick.
think
Yeah.
you might want to respond to something.
Hey,
And
Janet, what's up?
How you doing, bro?
How you doing, bro?
all right.
Shadows.
What's up?
I have a stunt.
I have a stunt double.
Yeah.
Dude, I wish I had two of me so I can get stuff done much faster. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. Let me see here. I'm just gonna go through some knobs here. All right. Let's see what we got going on.
If you want me to say testing, I'll start saying that until it doesn't sound like I'm double
I
anymore.
tell you what we're gonna do. I'm gonna mute your feed and I'm gonna come back. We'll chat and then give us 3 minutes. I'm gonna troubleshoot the audio and be back with you guys in like 3 minutes. We're gonna get into it.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Do you think it'd be better to plug a headset in? You know what's weird? I'm in a studio. My like the area I'm in is a recording studio.
On. Testing 1, 2, 3. That's coming in. Let's get your testing in there.
Testing, testing, testing. 1, 2,
All right,
3.
you're in there. The
Yo.
audio is
Okay.
registering.
Perfect.
Let's give it a go again. Let's do it live. All right, guys, we're back. I believe we have the audio fixed. I believe we tweaked it and we turned some knobs, flipped some tables upside down. And,
I have headphones now, just in case if there's like a double. I don't know what you call that.
Yeah, small echo.
Yeah. So hopefully everything's good now.
All right.
What's up? What's up, Quantum Blue? How you doing?
All right. You know what, Shadows? I might just hit enough buttons, okay? Sometimes you gotta hit the right buttons. Sometimes you gotta hit the right button. So, but you know, hey, when you're doing things live, you gotta get it right. Let me get the seat. Sometimes it's the seat. So, I think we got the echo fixed. We're out of the echo zone, so we're good to go. And we're gonna get into some goodness, because I know a lot of people have been following for such a long time, and I know they had opportunities to see you through interviews, but from a fan perspective, there's a lot of questions I feel that people want to ask, and I'm gonna try to get I'm gonna just interview from a fan perspective. I've been following for such a long time. I mean, I'm gonna talk about from the MySpace days.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
So,
oh man.
we're bringing it back from a long time ago. So let's see. All right, so let's get into it. Let's take us back to high school. So you were in high school, right? I usually say like, well, coming out of high school when you start, getting into the creative field. But what about I feel like you started in high school, right?
No, I started in elementary school.
Oh goodness. Okay, take us.
Yeah.
Okay, take us to elementary. Take us from coming out the womb when you first picked them out. But like, okay, take us from elementary school. When did you first know that you
wanted to be a creative? Like, like what was your first? Some hard questions, bro. All right, take us to your journey when you was like, okay, your first creativity coming out of elementary school.
It all started with me looking at like playing Nintendo, Sega games, and it led into like some games that have comic books associated with it, or I'll watch cartoons on like Fox. They had like Fox Kids back then, and I just liked all the artwork, so I started looking at because my uncle had a comic book collection, and the thing is like uh, I grew up in like a kind of like a poor area, and then my uncle was always under house arrest and stuff. So when he was gone, like doing whatever he does, he had a box of comic books under his bed, and I would sneak in to go read them. Right, like he had Spider, like all these rare comics too, and I was very inspired by like the drawings. And I always asked my mom to go to the library because back in those days there was no internet yet, right?
Yep.
So I go to the library, check out how to draw books, and just learned how to draw. So I was just drawing constantly. And what my mom's aunt, I should say my great aunt, had a restaurant like a little Vietnamese spot in Salt Lake.
All right.
And my mom would go and work there or visit the family, and I would sit and draw on their customers. So this is when I was like 5 or 6 years old. So this is when I started noticing I was good at drawing for my age, because her customers would come in, they're paying for the bill. They would look down at the table and be like, wow, you're a great artist, right? So their compliments kind of fueled my passion further. Then 1997 came and Toy Story came out.
Wow.
I saw that and I was fascinated with 3D at that point because 3D was fairly new. And I was a curious type. So like I was the type that, say, if my parents bought me a remote control car, I wanted to they got mad at me because I would unscrew it apart, take the motor out, and engineer something else out of it. I was always a tinkering type. I'd like to make and create things, right? So when I saw 3D, I was very fascinated with it because then they started introducing the Nintendo 64, PlayStation. And I was so curious on what 3D was, how it was created, and that's when I started going more into my 3D side of things. So I was doing 3D since '97, and at the time they only had whoever's watching. There was no such thing as Blender at this time. It was 3D Studio Max, Maya, Softimage, and a few other programs. Like there was Bryce and something else, and I couldn't afford those programs. So I had to, again, ask my mom, take me to the library. And they had those thick computer manuals with a demo disc in the back that lets you try it for like 15 days, 14 days. Take those home, knowing that I had only 14 days to learn the software. I installed it and try to learn as fast as I can through that book, picking up on all this knowledge. Then I wanted a permanent 3D program so I can try animating, and Office Max or Office Depot had these really, really cheap 3D programs that were like consumer grade, because at the time Maya, Max, and Softimage was all professional grade. They were using like Softimage to model like the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. All these were all professional grade. I couldn't afford it. So I forgot what the name of this 3D package was from Office Max or Office Depot, but you couldn't even animate. It was all basic geometry. And this is when I realized that you couldn't do polygon modeling with it. You can only put together. And if you guys look at my YouTube channel, I have this short film. I did like a Pokemon inspired fan film when I was 11 years old, but I took like basic geometric shapes to form the characters instead of polygon modeling. And then from there, you couldn't animate. So what I figured out how to do was move. It was almost like claymation, stop motion animation. And it's kind of weird that I had to work backwards on a 3D program where you were supposed to be able to animate. So say it was a character with arms, I would move the arm like a little bit, save a JPEG out, render one frame, move the arm, save a JPEG out, move an arm again, save that JPEG out. And then I actually had access to Premiere. Premiere, if you guys don't know, is an old ass program. It's been around forever, since the 90s. My dad stumbled upon it because he was like a video editor for like weddings and quinceañeras and Spanish weddings and all that. So that's how I kind of had my introduction to film, was through my dad, because it was a family business. But he had bought Premiere not knowing how to use it, and I saw the book and the disc, and I installed it and tried it, and I put all my frames in the timeline, and I played it back. And prior to this, I did dabble in claymation, because I had like, you know, those home VHS cameras. Yeah. So I applied what I knew in claymation and put those same techniques into this 3D program, and was able to produce a whole like 3-minute animated short with it. And I voiced it. I did all my own sound design and everything, with limited supplies. And on top of that, there was no such thing as a DVD back then. It was VHS. So my dad knew how to transfer the file and record, because we had these, like, you had to buy VHS decks. And there was a way, I forgot how he did it, but there was a way to transfer it to the VHS and record it onto a tape, like a VHS tape. I sound old, but so I took this and submitted it into like my elementary school film festival. Like they had, or they had show and tell. So I was that kid in class. I was like, everybody's bringing up their lizards or Barbie dolls or whatever. I brought up a VHS tape. I'm like, I made a 3D short film and showed it to the class. But yeah, and then from there, I started dabbling heavy into 3D, then back and forth to old school Photoshop. And it led all the way to my passion in game design in middle school, junior high. So I did that from 7th grade to 9th grade. And then leading up to high school, I discovered I couldn't finish a game because I was super ambitious. Wow. So I learned to take a few steps back and start with small projects. And this is when I started doing CD covers for local artists. So at first it was local Spanish bands. So here in the States, you know, I'm not sure if people are watching from out of, like, Connie, what's up, dude? Yeah. He's from Serbia. This is my homie. He works with me. But in the U.S., the Spanish community, like especially in Mexico, they have like bands, like especially northern Mexico. There's a Spanish name for them. It's just like bands, right? They usually like speak about cartels and stuff. But in Utah, they had a lot of these local bands, and my dad, since he shot wedding videos, these weddings would hire these bands, and my dad would get known in the Spanish community, and he's like, oh yeah, my son could design these covers. And then he had me learn Photoshop and start designing these covers, and then I moved my way up into, because I had friends that rapped and stuff, and this is when, and I was always passionate about hip hop growing up, because my aunts and uncles were always into hip hop. And this is like the Tupac, Biggie days. So I grew up with that music because of my aunts and uncles. Because my friends were rappers, like, hey, let's work on a project. And I started learning how to design like hip hop covers.
That's awesome.
In 10th grade. So, right?
I mean, just hearing that bio, it's like you touched on a lot of different things. You touched on claymation. You touched on, I mean, just taking snapshots of the 3D. That's amazing. That just seems like a lot of work, a lot of tedious work. But I mean, sequencing, we still do that today. But you touched on, so I feel like you started out as a 360 like creative, right? You kind of started out.
Yeah, I did. Started out.
It wasn't like, okay, I jumped here and I kind of migrated. You just like, I begin with just doing everything at one time, just 360 everything. So and then you started doing MySpace, CD covers for different. That's crazy. So because I feel like, what was your biggest, like, what was your first, like, oh my God, I'm talented moment? Was that when you started doing the CD covers and you just, some famous people started contacting you, or when you got into MySpace, when you just like started redesigning that, or?
When I forgot which cover it was. I did this local Spanish band, and then they spread my name to another Spanish band. Mm-hmm. So that kind of clicked with my mind. I'm like, oh, okay, they must like the work a lot, right, if they were recommending me to another Spanish band. And then from there, when I worked with my friend, a local rapper, I started going to these local hip hop shows and trying to hustle my way in. Like I was a nobody at the time. There was a local promoter out here. He was a rapper too. His name is Lance Million. I remember bumping into him at this, he threw this concert together, and I was kind of trying to be a music manager too, because I was managing my friend's career. Like, so I set up a little recording, like a cheap recording studio. I was like, let's record records. After high school, come over, I'll produce the beats. We had Fruity Loops. So I kind of went into the music. I used to produce beats as well. So I was all over the place. But I knew that if I can apply all my skills, I can cut costs. Because my goal wasn't to try to learn everything just because. My goal was to learn what I needed to get a final product out. Do you see what I mean? Like going back to the 3D animation. I wanted to make a short film, but I didn't have the resources to, so I made use of what I had already. Like the problems of being get that final product. That's why there's no excuses. If there's a lot of people that always try to go overboard and they need this and that. Like I'm telling people, you literally only need a few things, right? So with the local Spanish community leading up to the hip hop, talking to this guy named Lance Emilian, I hustled my way into this concert to get my friend on stage because I wanted him to open up, right? I was like, this is our opportunity. Let's get you on stage so you can perform in front of an audience. The way I got in, I was like, yo, I'm Chris. I was Chris at the time. I didn't have my nickname. At the time, it was C le before C le GFX. I was like, I designed CD covers. Look at this. I just showed him his cover. I only did one cover, right? But I guess it was dope enough for him to be like, oh yeah, just come through. Your boy can open up. Let's chop it up after. So that was kind of like my way in to the local hip hop circle here in Salt Lake. And Salt Lake City is such a small place at the time. There wasn't no big hip hop acts that came from Salt Lake. So it was the starting point before getting into the MySpace stuff. Yep.
Wow, that's crazy. You have a pretty awesome background. I feel like some people just kind of I started here and I got a job and just did A, B, and C, but I feel like yours is like you started indie, right? You started independent. You didn't start in a studio and well, I just met this guy and bumped into this person and now I'm over here doing A, B. I feel like you started from an independent mindset, from doing it by yourself, from just grinding it out. Seems like you're self-taught, if I'm not mistaken. You're self-taught. You're kind of learning things along the way and just kind of seeing a problem instead of hiring somebody to solve the problem. Maybe because of lack of resources, you felt, look, I'll solve it myself or learn the skill set myself. But I feel like we touched on everything, but I want to dive a little deeper into the cinematography, the film, the directing aspect of it. So I feel like you got 2 films under your belt, if I'm not mistaken. So what made you make the transition into music videos and then later films, if I have that order correct?
So my passion for films came obviously from first watching Jurassic Park when I was young. So I love films because of the VFX side of it. So I consider myself more like a technical director, less story. So a lot of technical directors like Zack Snyder, Michael Bay, they're more focused on the visuals of it. I was more fascinated in film because of the effects, practical effects, the magic of making something fake look immersive. So how I got in was I knew I always wanted to do either films or video games, right? So video games I did for 3 years, trying to make my own game, but I stopped because I couldn't finish it. So then that's when, like I said earlier, I was like, okay, scale back. What's easier to do, right? Then how I got into films was I started getting more involved in my family's business of just shooting weddings. And they had those cheap VHS. That's how we shot it. Those big, hunky. Oh, it looks like a news broadcast camera.
Cannon in your arm, just go around with a shoulder.
This is. Oh no, actual Canon. Yeah, it was heavy, right? So it was my uncle, my dad, and I went with them. I used to be the battery holder when I was a kid. So to power a light on the camera, it connected to this giant battery, and I was this little kid with this battery, and I would wrangle the battery pack behind my uncle while he films, and my dad would shoot the photos. So I was already kind of exposed to photography and film. But after I stopped doing video games, I was like, man, maybe this is my chance to really get back into films, but try to incorporate special effects somehow, right? And so this, in my high school years, they didn't have 24 frames a second. Everybody was used to either there's actual high budget cinema films, right, where they shoot on film, or there's VHS home video 60i interlace, frames a second. And I was fascinated on, okay, how do I get this 24 frame look? I heard there was tricks to fake it.
Yeah.
And bear in mind, this is literally before digital 24 frames a second came out. This is way before that. So I was looking online. There's like, and then we had the internet obviously around this time now. So there was plugins for Premiere, and it would take like you'd convert 1 minute of 60 frames VHS to 24 frames, and it'd take like half a day just to convert it. I tried it. It did something where it removed frames out of the 60 frame footage and did something with the interlace. I don't know the exact science of it. There's all these techniques, and then eventually I've heard about, this is like my 8th grade or 9th, no, my 10th grade, 11th grade year, Panasonic was coming out with this 100A and 100B, and it was fake 24, right? And then they had also Canon had the Canon XLR. It was that weird camera that was shaped like a weird L, and I was seeing other, because what happened was I would go to these parks with my dad where he'd shoot the weddings, and there were other competitors there, these other videographers, and I saw that camera. I was like, what's that? And then I talked to them. They told me it's a Canon XLR. I did my research, and apparently it had a mode in there that shot 30 frames. So it got closer to 24. So down the road, business got good for my dad. Everything we were running this family business, and then we saved the money to. We didn't get the 100A, 100B. This local camera shop said there's a camera called the HVX 200 coming out, and it shoots true 24 frames a second, progressive. Begged my dad, we're like, let's shoot more of these weddings, stack up the money, let's buy it, right? So we did more projects, bought this camera, and this is when I really experimented with music videos. Oh, before that though, I did shoot a music video on a VHS camera. I have it somewhere online, so I shot like a cheap homemade video camera, edited in Premiere, everything. So I knew at this point I'll try to break into the music industry, knowing, because I did my research, I knew that Universal Studios owned UMG, Universal Music Group. It was all connected. These video game studios were tied with the film industry, and the film industry owns the music industry. It's all interlinked, and I knew if you can get your foot in the door somehow, you can work your way up. That's what a lot of people don't know, right? Like, if they're all the same, they're all in the same circle. If you're good at one thing, say if you're good at mixing music, but you have a passion in films, get your foot in the door first with mixing music, right? Once you're in that like circle and you know that they're all connected, it gets easier from there. But anyways, doing cheap music videos, and then I was balancing it out. I started my business in high school officially, where I was doing hip hop covers, right, for local artists. So I practiced doing music videos at the same time, designing covers and then doing the MySpace layouts and coding them. And as I got confident with my skills as a music video, then I did a bunch of free videos. I did free videos for 5 years, right? Just free videos left and right, build up my portfolio, going straight into college. Then I started experimenting with visual effects and how to composite, how to render passes, and throwing up music videos. So I was able to keep my local videos looking high budget because no one knew how to throw visual effects onto the music videos at the time. Like visual effects music videos weren't even a big thing back then. Like the old Michael Jackson video where he's in space in a space station, that was the most expensive music video at the time. Apparently it cost $7 million. But I looked at it, I was like, those graphics don't even look that great. Like, no, I can beat that, right? So again, I knew music videos would be an opening door into someday directing them. So the music videos was like a gateway for me, right? So it went from doing graphics, balancing graphics with music videos, and then figuring out how to get into film. And how I got into film was kind of, actually before film, commercials. So there was someone was telling me like you can't stick with music videos forever or else you get typecasted as a music video director. So I knew I had to break out of it as fast as I can somehow, right? So it solved. It was all timing, right? It was all timing before I started to direct my first feature film ever.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Man, I feel like that type of background right there kind of allows people to see that there's not one way to make it. You know what I mean? There's just, like I said, getting into the building is the hardest part. Like once you get in, then somebody knows somebody and they see your work and yada yada yada. But I feel like everyone's trying to get in the industry, but I feel like there's the way in is different for everybody, right? Like the way you do is not the way somebody else do, and it may not work for somebody else. It may work for you at that given moment in time, right? Versus when somebody else go and they maybe get your Instagram popping in and send your feed across, something like that. But let's get into the apparel part of it, right? Because I guess let's start with when you're doing the game. I see you make really awesome guns, right? And they're matter of fact, let's cut to it. Really awesome guns, and I feel like the guns and the shoes and the combination, like it's really cool stuff. So when did you start doing skins?
So this is when I started circling back into my old school days of wanting to be a game designer. So I have a little brother, Brandon, right? And he was watching what I was doing ever since I was a kid. Like he always wanted to do something in the arts. My parents, they kind of didn't want him to be because I was already the artist, and a lot of parents always had the mentality that artists are broke, right? So they kind of pressured him into going to college and doing something in the medical field. But the thing is, like, my family is not in the medical. No one in my family is in the medical field. We're all like business like hustlers, right? We own small family businesses. Da, 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 da. So I was like, I don't think that's in like our DNA. Or I know it doesn't sound right, but like it was just, we're surrounded by art. My dad's a photographer. My mom's a makeup artist. So I was like, how the hell is my brother going to be a doctor? Like, obviously, I never would even touch that field. It's not my thing, right? So my brother would study 3D watching me do it. But he was kind of doing it behind the scenes a little bit, not getting way too deep into it. But what had happened was they introduced this game called Team Fortress 2 on Steam. And my brother was really into that game because he collected and traded what we call hats. They weren't even called skins at the time. They were called hats. Because on the characters you would wear a hat, and then Steam and Valve just introduced the whole trading platform where kids can trade skins for keys, and they can get Steam money out of it and trade it back into video games. So my brother practiced trading skins, and he got really good at it. Then Valve introduced the Steam Workshop in the early days. This is like, I think this is 2009, to be honest, or 10. My brother knew about it a little bit, and he's like, man, apparently I heard if you get a skin accepted in Team Fortress 2, you can make some money. And later on, he didn't really dive into Team Fortress 2, but Dota 2 had come out in 2011 or 10. I can't remember. 11. And then they introduced the workshop, and my brother started thinking about, hey, I'm gonna try this skin making on Dota 2, right? So he uses techniques and everything he learned by watching me to try it. And then at the same time, I think I was living in LA, just working with Game and all those guys, right? And then doing music videos and just doing my thing. I heard about my brother trying to pursue 3D again, but at the same time he was trying to get a pharmacy degree, or he's going to the University of Utah for organic chemistry. He was hating it. His life was miserable. Behind the scenes, behind my parents' back, he was doing 3D things, right? And then I saw him getting really good at this 3D stuff. I was like, dude, like, just keep going at it. He got one skin uploaded, and it got accepted, and the money was coming in. And my parents were like, wait, what? Like, this stuff makes money? And I was like, whoa, this is really, really, really cool, right? Wow. And I was like, you know what? Like, I wanted to give a try at it too. So first off, I noticed all the guys trying to make skins, they didn't have a marketing background. I was like, what if we combine the aspects of marketing these Dota 2 sets on YouTube through cool videos? So I was like, I have this film background, marketing background. Why not combine the both worlds together? So I went and started studying skin making, and I did a couple collaborations with my brother. So because you have to texture it. Mm-hmm. So he would make the Dota 2 assets, pass them to me. I would color them. I would paint the 3D objects, and then we'd submit the skins. But at the same time, I would do these viral Dota 2 videos that advertise the skins. And we got a second skin accepted that I was attached to. I was like, oh shit, this is crazy. And then, it was lucrative too. At the same time, I was like, this is crazy. Like this could be a big business. that's how I started getting in. I was doing these Dota 2 sets, and then I got on the radar of the local Dota 2, not local, sorry, I shouldn't say local, but the Dota 2 community. I got hit up by big Dota 2 YouTubers. Like, there's a YouTube channel, they have like 1 million some subs, called Dota Cinema. They saw my work, they featured it, they hit me up to do a collab. And I kind of got too busy for the film thing. I actually finished with editing my first film with Danny Trejo. So I had some time to get into the skin thing, right? So I did all this Dota 2 stuff, and then my film was getting distributed. Everything was good. It was on Netflix and all that. And I knew I wanted to get into a second film, but my mind was already set on doing the skin stuff. So I was balancing skin stuff in Dota 2 while, running my business, designing mixtape covers. MySpace was dying. It was already Facebook, right? Instagram had just came out. So it was really hard. I was juggling all these things at the same time, but still my passion was like into this skin stuff. Then CSGO came out, Counter-Strike. They didn't have a workshop at the time, but where the workshop came out was Valve Software they invited my brother to this, it was called the Dota 2 Internationals. So my brother got invited to TI3 or TI4. I went with him. As a guest, because you could invite a guest, right? I wasn't invited because I wasn't as big as my brother yet. My brother had started to build his name up in the Dota 2 community. He was one of the top skin designers. I was like, man, this shit runs in the family. Like he found his lane, right? So he did what I wanted to do, get into the game design scene, right? So I was like, this is so cool. So I went with them a couple times, and my skins, I started getting known in the Dota 2 community because I was known as the guy that can market the skins well. So even my skins weren't as great as my brother's, but the marketing for it made it seem like it was great. Like, I do these viral videos that get hundreds of thousands of views. I would get featured, like people would post my stuff on Reddit. I would always make it top Reddit on the Dota 2 community. And eventually Valve had invited me to TI 5 or 6, I can't remember. So now I built my reputation up in the Dota 2 community, where they invited me out. Then was funny because these CSGO dev guys approached me. They approached a bunch of the invited workshop artists, like, hey, we started the Counter-Strike scene, the workshop. We're looking for Dota 2 guys. Are you interested in doing skins? I kind of brushed it off because I didn't care for Counter-Strike at the time. I was all about Dota 2. Because Dota 2 was hype, it was popping. I was already in it. Then later on, my brother was telling me, man, I heard CSGO is slightly like getting popping. And, I'm more stronger as a graphic designer. I had the eye for graphic design, right? Because it's all graphic design is about the strategy of placing things. And 3D designing in Dota was a lot of work because you had a 3D sculpt, 3D model, taking a ZBrush sculpt, texture. It took long to make one set. But I heard about CSGO blowing up, and it was easier to make skins because you don't have to do 3D modeling. You take their gun, you throw it in Maya or whatever, Blender, then you just texture it. It's all texturing, right? I tried it out. My first skin I did, boom, got accepted. And it was very lucrative. The scene was cool. It was booming. There was this whole... I liked the drama of it, too. There was this whole skin gambling drama that was interesting to me. So the CSGO skin scene seemed like the darker side of the skin scene. Like, it was all the cool kids were at, right? And I felt like this... And at the same time, coming from the hip-hop background, I was like, I want to pollinate the scene with my hip-hop background to kind of make it cool, right? So this is when I started thinking of skin designing as more fashion. So that's when it led into the whole shoes thing, and we can pivot towards that. Like, I know I'm getting all over the place, but yeah, there you go. So this is when I decided to skin sneakers, like right after that. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, you started skinning sneakers, right? And then that led to your line, right? Because I'm looking at these sneakers, I'm like, the collaborations, because I work in a marketing company, and I was trying to tell, I was like, yo, these guys, we had this campaign, I can't name the apparel brand, but it was like a high-end apparel brand. I was like, look, we need to start what you're doing right now was like, look, we can get some not only artists, but we can get like, animated figures and stuff like that, and just start collaborating, like just any object that people are hyped about and fusing with sneakers. They didn't jump on the idea, but I feel like this is exactly what I had imagined. What you did, and you executed so well, so beautifully done. It's like it's like an homage. You know what I mean? Those who know, they know. But honestly, if he would just walk out, those are just cool sneakers, right? But those who know. So tell me more about like the apparel side of things, like your full-fledged.
Go
ahead.
Yeah, so not a lot of people know I had a background in apparel. See, this it's so hard to do these like podcasts because like it can go on for hours,
Right.
if not days, right? But during my music video, when I was getting heavy into hip hop music videos, I was fascinated with streetwear. Streetwear was fairly new, right? There was actually no term for it yet. People called it skatewear because at the time, clothing that rappers wore was called hip hop or urban wear, right? So a lot, a lot of you young kids, before streetwear, Supreme, and all that, in hip hop culture, people bought their stuff from a store called drj's.com. Like no one would know if I even brought that up. Like no one knows what Dr. J's is now. But in the 90s, going into the early 2000s, Dr. J's. Do you know what Dr. J's is, Sadiq? Do you remember that? Ah, man. So
You
Dr.
went over my head with
J's
that one.
was a yeah, so Dr. J's, look it up after this. It started in New York City.
Right.
So Dr. J's is where you went and bought like FUBU, you bought Sean John, you bought Academics, Rockaware, right?
Right.
So I used to be like in middle school, high school, I was way into hip hop culture. So like Jay-Z started Rockaware, there's all these like hip hop brands. They called it hip hop
Right.
clothing or urban clothing at the time, right? So in 2009 to 2010, skatewear, because you remember, like hip hop started fusing with skate a tiny bit. So it started with like Pharrell Williams is like really one of the first. So Pharrell, I watched Pharrell's videos, NERD. They were skating in the video and they combined elements of rock. I was like, this is sick. Like I like this because I heard in the 90s, you're used to gangster rap, you're used to like the boom bap hip hop, East Coast, like all that, right? But then this new sound fusing rock a little bit. Pharrell, and then Lupe Fiasco came out with that kick push video, right? And I knew about that video because that was one of the first videos that used the HVX 200 or the 100A. It was all in the Panasonic forums. And the director was like, yeah, we use this camera. I was like, wow, that's a really good video because it combined like visual effects a little bit. I was really impressed by the video because it was a very independent made video, right? And then Lupe started blowing up Kanye, started messing with them and everything. So I heard about streetwear, and then Supreme was still known as a skate brand in New York City. So streetwear, there was a culture of it in California, in Fairfax. So it was a brand called The Hundreds. This is before Diamond Supply Co. So this is the whole culture. And I started seeing all these like music videos where these rappers are wearing like streetwear, right? And it was cool t-shirts, graphic tees. I started getting a graphic tee culture. And I was like, man, since I'm a graphic designer and since I do music videos, why not start my own brand? Like this is like how YouTubers start figuring out, how to monetize, right? So started this whole thing where if I started a clothing brand, I knew rappers sold the brand through wearing it in the music videos. Since I'm in control of these videos, I did these deals. I was like, I would approach upcoming rappers that I knew were getting a label deal, and I would trade work. So like for example, one of the videos I did Ty Dolla $ign's and YG's one of their first videos called Fuck Y'all. Yeah. They were touring, they came to Salt Lake, and I hit them up. I knew my homie hooked them up with them. And I said, hey, I'll shoot your music video for free. I said, I'll fund it, right? I have all my own equipment. In exchange, you have to wear my clothes. So I started my own clothing line called Brand Forte. I said, you wear this stuff, I'll shoot it. They're like, oh yeah, it's a free video. And rappers know music videos cost money. Right. But I knew I would make all that money back through flipping the clothes. So once they wore the video got a couple 100,000 views. They visited my website because I had the logo at my clothing brand at the beginning. Right. I get all my orders, I'll make all my money back. Yeah. So that's how I kind of use that marketing strategy to push my clothes. Yeah. So I stopped the clothing line because this is when I started to get into films, right? I met a client who was a rapper, and he had a lot of money, right? And then one of my friends, this is when Red came out, the Red camera, Red 1. Yes. So so this is when my music videos are already high budget. Like I'm getting like 10, 20, 30. And to people that sounds small, but at the time, like 10, 20, $30,000 was a high budget video, right? Considered because they don't do $100,000 music videos like that. It always gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Yeah. So I was doing these videos. It let me afford renting a Ret, right? And grip, gaff, camera, lighting equipment. I I hired this. I knew this one kid out here in Utah who owned a red, and then he was a DP. I was like, hey, I'm gonna rent a red. Let's do it. He introduced me to the world of filmmaking in Utah. So I didn't know that there was this local studios who make movies that go to theaters. I never knew that was a concept. I didn't know that in the film industry, there's sales agents who take low budget movies and go straight to DVD, right? So he introduced me to like, hey, let's do a low budget movie. And there's a whole scene of you put together like $100,000, and you can hire a cheap actor who's known, like a B-lister, like Jean-Claude Van Damme. You get them, put him on the cover of the DVD, and they're only in the movie for like a minute, right? And you'd flip. I didn't know it was that scene, so I was like, wow, this is actually the best opportunity for me to get in. That way I can keep oh, by the way, my screen is
something going on. Yeah. Like, let's see here. We can just let's see here. Like you start shrinking on us. All right, let's.
I'll continue talking, but anyways, yeah. So getting into that film stuff. That's why I stopped line, by the way. But then fast forward to last year, actually 2 years ago, I was like, I was starting to build up a following on my Instagram, and with my passion for sneakers, I started seeing the sneaker scene getting bigger and bigger and bigger. No one was thinking, and skins were getting big, right? The whole skin scene, like video game skins. Like, what if I took one of my skins and threw it on a sneaker? I decided to do that with my first skin, which was the Point Disarray from Counter-Strike. I skinned a shoe on Photoshop, threw it out, and it went viral on Reddit.
Wow.
I was like, wow, there's something to this. Because also, I knew this would work because streaming is already popular at this time, right? A lot of kids stream games. Esports is starting to get big. So gaming was looked at something nerdy or closeted back then. My goal was, the thing is, I was always the kid that wanted to change the mainstream. So Asian Americans weren't big in hip hop or whatever. I want to try to change that, right? If gamers are looked at as nerdy or geeky, I want to change that. Do you see what I mean? So
culture.
I was like, I want to pollinate gaming culture somehow. Because I feel like gaming's going to be mainstream. You're going to have rappers gaming. I was right. There's rappers who stream their esports team. Like, look at Offset. He's a FaZe Clan. Like, I knew that was going to happen. But my big breakthrough moment was like, I noticed gamers talking about sneakers. Like, Yeezys were big. I was like, if gamers are talking about sneakers and they collect skins, because there's a sneaker trading scene, there's a skin trading scene, not cross promote and put them together, right? So, there you go.
You pop in there.
So,
Fix it.
okay, so that's when I skinned a sneaker and tested out, and it worked. And I didn't start a brand yet. I just wanted to gauge with the audience to see if there's a demand for it, and so there was a demand. And then that's when I started a new brand, and I don't even consider it a brand. It's like a tech company with my other two co-founders, Benoit and Zaptio. And we can get into that too, but yeah. So sorry, I'm going off way too much. I know.
I'm riveted. Man. I mean,
okay.
I mean, I feel like you start the way you are, right? Because you started doing everything, right? You started from like 360 creative, and then you proceeded with that mantra, right? You proceeded doing 360. If there was like a hole or a creative hole, instead of like, okay, let me just save some money and find somebody to do it, you learned that skill set. And you put it to yourself, and then you kind of went down that road in that skill set. And then I feel like if I have to give your creative story a theme from my perspective, just from the conversation, I would say you have the ability to take your creativity in one aspect and push it through everything else, right? So you were able to take that skill set, and when you first started and just, figuring things out, right? For just from the PNGs and taking the shots of the 3D character and just kind of figuring things out. And you was able to proceed that all the way to what you're doing now. So, I mean, that's super awesome. But I feel them, I guess, stand out from somebody else. Like, everybody has a different way of doing things, right? But I feel like the people who are not necessarily successful, they try to do it a way somebody else did, and they just, I feel like everybody creatively have a thumbprint, and that what makes them unique, and that what makes them stay in the business and makes them viable far as creative. I mean, it's just awesome. So last question, not take too much of your time. Last question. If you had to give someone some advice for somebody who's just coming into the game, a creative game, and they're like, look, I want to be like Chris Lee. I want to do a lot of multiple things, and they're just starting out. Let's say that they're not like you, not a child prodigy. Let's say they just start out of high school, right? And they're leaving high school. What would be your recommendation?
So say I actually tell the same thing to everybody, but there's a book I read, and it inspired me because it was kind of similar to my thought process anyways. It's by Robert Rodriguez, the director. It's called Rebel Without a Crew.
Yeah.
So it's about how he came into film. And he's such an inspiration because he did it like me. Screw the industry, do it yourself mentality, no excuses. Like the dude was donating blood to get money to finish his film, right? It was El Mariachi. Like he did that on a $5,000 budget. So it's the no excuse mentality, because anybody could do it. Like I come from a small city, Salt Lake, Utah. Like it's like a predominantly white state, right? There was no culture here, but I didn't care about that. Like I knew if you put out a good product, everybody would know, right? So there's a lot of people that get intimidated with like how to do things, but to be honest, it's a sacrifice, right? Like in high school, I didn't party too much. I didn't do any of that. I just focused on my craft, my forte, built it up. No excuses. If I wanted, I would have a goal. So from step A to step B, how do I get there, right? And I know there's going to be all these mistakes and everything in a way, but I at least want to get to a finished product. And if I can get to that finished product, I would see my mistakes, how to make it better, then move on. But there should be no excuse. And don't have the mentality of, I need to buy all this equipment, all this expensive stuff. You don't need to. Like, you can shoot a whole movie on an iPhone now. Like, Soderbergh now is just trying to shoot movies on an iPhone. There is no excuses. Like, to be honest, I would try to get the best quality out of garbage. Because that means that when you get to the big equipment, you would know how to utilize it even better, right? Like, there's even things, there's some film sets I'm on, like some of my movies, where they want to shoot on red, but I'm like, it's inconvenient to hold that big camera and get these specific shots. I'll go shoot it on my iPhone. You know what I mean? Like, if you have that mentality on how to utilize garbage or like shit to create something, I feel like you would kill it in anything. Yeah. And that's just my advice. Perfect. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome right there. I mean, no excuses. If anyone out there, you have no excuses.
Yeah.
So I don't know why it's living like that, but definitely appreciate everything.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're doing it, and multiple aspects, multiple creativities. I imagine how many projects you have floating in the air at one time. But so that's everything. I appreciate you taking the time, man. I hope you have a blessed day.
Oh, thank you for having me.
All right, peace.